Okay, so I'm coming to you guys today to talk about probably one of the most frustrating reads I have ever had in my life when it comes to comic books. It was a read so frustrating, though for good reasons, that it has led me to ask the question that I'm going to be asking you today. That's the title of this video. Is there such thing as a black superhero? So I know that a lot of people are probably going to say that I'm playing a game of semantics, but from everything that I can tell in various universes, various comic book companies, we have superheroes that are black, but I'm not so sure that we do have black superheroes. And I'm saying this noting certain heroes like Metropolis's superhero will be Superman. America's superhero might be Captain America. These are individuals who are superpowered, who have all kinds of amazing abilities, but what they do is they fight to uphold the values and the safety, the security, and the stability of a specific entity, be that Metropolis, be that Gotham, be that America, be that Wakanda. However, there is this very troubling lack of having black issues specifically and particularly dealt with in comic books, oftentimes by characters who know all too well what it means to not just be a freak because you are a mutant, because you are a metahuman, because you have been involved in some kind of accident that has given you these powers, or because you're an alien here on Earth that has a black exterior. These are superheroes who also know what it means to be a superhero and to be black. So the read that I'm talking about is the story of Blue Marble. And so I'm going to let you know right here that if you're interested in getting into the story of Blue Marble and you have not yet done so, major spoiler alerts, okay? So stop the video here, go read it, come back and join the conversation. So a little bit about Blue Marble's background. His name is Adam Brashear, and he's born in the early 1900s. He fights in Korea for the United States, of course. He goes to Cornell and he becomes not only an engineer, but also a theoretical physicist, where he is trying to do an experiment for the Marines. He's a Marine, wherein he's going to create this portal into what's called the negative zone. And this is a sort of liminal space where our universe and the antimatter universe kind of meet. He is actually successful. It was thought to be impossible. However, the portal is unstable. It does blow up, and he and his friend Connor, who is a white man, another veteran as well of the Korean War, who is, I guess, what we might call, he tries to be anti-racist. They're caught in this explosion, and both of them are affected. Both of them come out of this with a lot of new talents, of course, new powers, except for Connor, who becomes Anti-Man, is unstable. And this is not only describing his mental state, but also his physical state, wherein if he gets overpowered by certain types of energy, he actually begins to disintegrate and fall into the negative zone. Whereas Adam is a stable antimatter reactor embodied in his person. And so he gains all kinds of amazing powers. Just to let you know a few of them, just to let you know how powerful he is and how powerful he's considered. At the time of his debut, he was called one of the most powerful beings on Earth and possibly in the Marvel comic universe. Some of his powers include being able to, of course, manipulate energy constructs, antimatter. He has super senses, so he can see at the quantum level. And this is seen when he is able to look at a wounded but also very sick Monica Rambeau and see what's happening to her on the quantum level. To show you not only how brilliant he is, but also some of his powers. Not only is he able to fix Monica Rambeau, whose power is basically that she's able to turn her body into any type of energy along the electromagnetic spectrum. He's able to heal her, but also amplify her powers. It is thought that he's capable of manipulating all kinds of different energy. His strength is such that he has uppercut World Ender Hulk and knocked him out with a single punch. Sentry, he actually launched into orbit with a single punch. And Sentry is said to have the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. He has held up a meteor the size of Arizona, and it is said that his strength, the upper limits of his strength, have no bounds. He's able to fly at speeds slightly lower than the speed of light, and he's so strong that he threw a medal that he had received at the moon in a fit of anger. And Owatu, the Watcher, basically said, yeah, had you thrown that any harder, you would have cleaved the moon in two. He can exist in the vacuum of space with no problem. He doesn't need any protective gear. He does not need to eat, sleep, or drink, so he doesn't feel any of those kinds of needs. And he built an entire lab in the Marianas Trench, so he can deal with the extreme pressures of the deepest parts of the ocean. So, as a hero, Adam Brashear as Blue Marvel was absolutely loved. He donned a mask and he put on, you know, the spandex and the cape, and he did amazing feats for the Earth. And he was actually considered Earth's favorite superhero, along with being the strongest being on Earth. During his first fight with Ant-Man, Connor, who was his best friend, who had stood up for him and actually punched racist white men who were coming against him, who were in his same platoon during Korea, while they were fighting, in order to kind of expose the ways of the world, Ant-Man purposely ripped Adam Brashear's mask, and the entire world was able to see that underneath the mask was a black man. At this point in time, the President of the United States invites Brashear to the White House in private, gives him the highest honor that the president can give, and then asks him to stop working. Basically because the world was not ready to see a black man who was also the most powerful being that the world had ever known thus far. The fear came from other politicians that Brashear may take up the black cause. So herein lies my frustration. It was the frustration, obviously, of black people, normal, regular black people, in the comic book as well, because there are scenes where they are throwing things at him and they are protesting the Blue Marvel, because they're saying, you know, look, you look like us, you're the most powerful person on the planet, and we're still living like this. And so to me, this is the perfect exhibition of what it means to be black in America, and that the comic book has beautifully actually captured the antagonism that it means to be a black superhero and having to choose a side. This lays out the structure of things. This lays out the framework that we live in. Or I will say this, it lays out the framework that we as black people are not included in. If black people were truly civilians, with all the rights, all the protections of civilians, if we were able to represent this country and feel that this country responded and appreciated us representing them and reciprocated that, then a black superhero, or a superhero that happens to be black rather, would not have to take up a black cause. We would take up the American cause, but we understand as black people that oftentimes the American cause is not something that includes us. It's not something that even really sees us as existing in any real way. Black superheroes oftentimes have to decide, am I going to take up the cause of black people, or am I going to take up the causes of America and be noble? And there's always this subtext of being courageous and being willing to always do what's right. Every time I see people talk about Blue Marvel and they talk about this one specific conversation that he has with Namor, the Submariner, what they mention is that Namor talks about, very briefly, fighting alongside the Red Tails. And we know them as black pilots in American history who were incredibly brave and who fought against odds to fight for the country. And he, Namor says they always fought for what was right. The piece that people forget, and they always leave this out when they're talking about this conversation, however, is that when Bashir says to Namor, "Would you have me condemn a whole group of people?" Namor tells him, "Captain America is my oldest friend, but if it came to my people, if it came down to my people's survival, I would flood the earth." So this is why I have the question, do we have superheroes that are black, or do we have black superheroes? Superheroes who respond to black issues and on a global level. Namor would take out the entirety of land walking creatures in order to save his people. We have superheroes capable of that. From the Dakotaverse / DC, I guess you can say, we have Icon, we have Storm, you know, we have probably with the technology and the brilliance, even the Wakandans, and of course we have Blue Marvel. And this is not even an exhaustive list of all of the various black superheroes that we have that could possibly take on this feat. We have several black Supermans. And so with that said, I'm going to ask you this question, and I want to hear your replies and your responses. Is there such thing as a black superhero? As far as what I've read thus far, my answer would have to be no. And I think it's because, to be quite honest, comic book writers are either limited in their imagination, which is what we do here. We talk about the failures and the triumphs of contemporary imagination around the bodies of black people, people of the black diaspora and the African diaspora. And so they're either lacking severely in imagination, or they're afraid of what that may actually look like. What would it mean for an icon to completely free the black peoples of Earth? Seeing as to how he grew up, you know, he's not technically a human, but he grew up in black skin in the times of slavery. Blue Marvel not only experienced racism, but his wife, a white woman, was hired to spy on him, and she was basically surveillance. So all of his marriage was a lie. And even when Tony Stark and Reed Richards come to him and say, "Hey, we need you to stop Ant-Man because you're the only person who has ever stopped him before." When Blue Marvel says, "Hey, I know how to stop him, and this is what we have to do," Reed Richards and Tony Stark say, "Well, it sounds dangerous, and we don't know if that's possible." And he says, "But I know it's possible because I am an antimatter reactor, a stable one." And they still showed the utmost distrust. They fought him when he went to go stop Ant-Man on his own. Not only fought him, but also captured him. And of course, we all know what the black relationship to captivity has been. But I think the bigger picture is that white men were telling a black man who lived the embodied experience, who has the exact same powers, except stable, as their enemy, and he's living this in his body. They're telling him that we don't trust you and that you don't know what you're talking about. We don't trust your knowledge. So what would it look like for Blue Marvel to say, "Fuck it, I know this too well. I'm tired of these feelings of being unfree, of having to have white men sanction all of my moves, control my mobility, and I'm going to free all black people everywhere." What would that look like? What would that cost? What would that do? So, this is your opportunity to let me know in the comments what you think, and please like, join, subscribe so that we can continue these conversations.